Hey everyone, how you doing? Do you know when you have a book that's been on the bookshelf for a couple of years and you've always meant to read it but you never got round to it? Well, the book for me was this one, Travellers in the Third Reich, The Rise of Fascism Through the Eyes of Everyday People. And it caught my eye because I thought that I may be able to draw some parallels between what happened in Germany in the 1930s and what's going on now in large parts of the world, particularly the Western world. And you can say to me that's a pretty stark or even unjustified comparison. And you're entitled to your opinion if you want, but it's not. And I'm going to explain why. There is a very, very big similarity. Now, it says on the back of the book here, without the benefit of hindsight, how do you interpret what's right in front of your eyes? And it's a really, really good, very good question, that. And that is an important question that every human being should be considering all the time. Because when we're living through something, no matter what time we live in, what age we live in, nobody living in that age is going to be able to fully understand it. It is only with the benefit of the benefit of history, and as more evidence starts to emerge, that historians are able to layer together and contextualize and stitch together exactly what happened, and then draw some conclusions, and then historians can then, impart their own individual judgment on what happened in a particular age. But there are some things that need to be taken into consideration. Some ages are more tumultuous than others. It is my strong opinion that we are living through that now. It's also my opinion that it's our time to suffer is upon us. And it is my opinion as well that it's our fault. So, let me try and give you a little bit more of my opinion on this. Whilst the benefit of hindsight does give us a more accurate, detailed picture and give us that ability to understand why things happened as they did, I think you can divide people into two groups when it comes to how they try and understand the world as they're living in it, and society and how it's evolving. Because it's all too easy to look upon the age in which you live as something that's going to be merely inconsequential, a mere footnote in history. Nothing of real significance has taken place. And I'm sure that's how people in 1930s Germany felt as well, particularly after they elected in a chancellor who did create jobs and who did promise a brighter future. A lot of them probably thought, okay, life's going to be good now. But they were ripe for manipulation, just as people right now, after decades of softening up, are ripe for manipulation. So what are the similarities then? Well, first of all, both examples is a common enemy. So in 1920s and 1930s Germany, of course, the common enemy, the primary enemy, was the Jewish people. And right now, the common enemy, or so we're told, is coronavirus, or COVID-19. And we've been told many times that we're fighting a war against COVID-19, just as the Germans were told they were fighting a war against the Jewish people who were sabotaging the German nation and controlling its finances. I've thought since the very start of this, that comparison, that analogy that we're fighting a war against a virus is bollocks, utter crap. We're not fighting a war. 2 generations ago, my grandparents They did fight a real war and risk their lives. Whilst my both grandfathers were out fighting the war in Europe and North Africa, my two nanas were at home while bombs rained down on them. Yeah, here we are, told that we're heroes. We were heroes for staying in at home. We were heroes for going to work, the ones of us who could go to work. And we were even heroes for doing the noble act of staying 2 meters apart when we were shopping. It shames our generation, this. There are no heroes, unfortunately. I see a lot of cowardice though. And what are the other similarities? Second similarity is, just as in 1930s Germany, the people right now have put and continue to put their faith in what the government are saying. So Adolf Hitler ultimately was a personality cult, and he was very good at it, at captivating the imagination. And he was charismatic, and he was able to convince people that what he said was the truth. And I think maybe a slight difference was, whilst ordinary Germans maybe needed to place their faith in somebody who could be their saving grace, their saviour after the humiliation of World War One. I think the difference now, Germany was a very, very educated, quite liberal society, highly educated. Whereas I think right now, in large parts of the West, certainly in the UK, I think that there's a hell of a lot of stupidity and laziness and complacency, and a often complete lack of historical perspective. So I think that people simply don't want to ask questions because they're too lazy to. Either that, or they're just plain naive. Either one, it's a result of decades of comfort, lack of threat, and last few years lack of meaning as well. I think we've fallen into a malaise. So similarity, but there's the difference for you. And the third similarity as well is the constant hammering home of what is in effect a simple message. This is the enemy, and this is what you need to do to beat the enemy. Now that was done by the Nazis to, not so much to create fear. It was done by the Nazis to create a seething anger in the population, to brainwash them into believing that the Jew was the enemy. And we all know how it ended up. And the really, really interesting thing is that in 1930s Germany, we didn't have a situation where all of a sudden there was 50 million evil psychopaths born at the same time in the same country. There's an argument whether Hitler was an evil psychopath. That wasn't the case. The case so happened that because of the intimidation, it was easier for people to bury their head in the sand, to look the other way, and to do as they were told. And then what started with the burning of books ultimately ended with the burning of bodies, and ordinary people like me and you putting bullets in the back of innocent people's heads. Compliance. That is the word. Aristotle said that anarchy is the greatest form of all evil. But I actually disagree with that. I think compliance is, and I think history shows that. And what do we have right now? Idiotic, dumb compliance, with a population largely who are still not asking questions, and who are burying their heads in the sand, and who, if they were in that era, 1930s Germany, would be going along exactly with what Adolf Hitler and Goebbels and Himmler and the rest of the Nazis told them to do, because simply it would be easier. So again, you may find this offensive, upsetting, insulting, in which case, okay, no problem. I am simply drawing attention to some disturbing parallels. Who knows what the outcome of this is going to be? And I'll just end by saying that I think if you're going to do one thing in your life, fail at everything, but ask questions. Ask the questions. Okay? All right then. Speak soon.